Morning all. Right, couple of things before we start today. Firstly, this is the second time I've done this. Obviously you're only going to see the one version. I've done all this yesterday. I did about an hour and 15-minute blog, got it on the editing suite, and I've been having some microphone problems. A few of you have messaged me and said that there's a audio hiss, there's not a lot I can do about that at the moment. It will be hopefully resolved on Thursday. This cheap plastic 10-year-old 30-quid mic is not the best. But just now I've just been mucking around on the editing suite, and I did explain at the beginning that it was a new process for me. Didn't really know what I was doing. I found a button. There's a button on there to reduce audio hiss. So that's what I'm going to try today. I've also tried picking clothing that the microphone won't tap against, because that was the problem with yesterday's filming. When I played it back all the way through, it was just going click, 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 click. It was awful. The filming was good, but unfortunately the audio was terrible. But like I say, I've got a new mic coming on Thursday, which is hopefully a lot better than that one. Paid a little bit more for it. But everything takes so long now, doesn't it? Everybody's using the postal service because you can't go anywhere, which brings me perfectly into my second point I want to bring up. Books. Quite a few of you have ordered books, either Flick of the Tail or Fine Lines. Everything that's been ordered has been posted. I spoke to the postmaster lady the other day, and she said that the reports from the sorting office is it's worse than Christmas. It is absolutely manic. Some of them the books are getting to you within 3 days. That's what it should take. And some are taking a little bit longer. A few days over that. So don't panic. If you've ordered one, it is coming to you, but they are absolutely snowed under in the sorting office. They've probably got less staff because of all of this, self-isolating and what have you. That's the second point. Books are on their way, so don't panic. Obviously, if it goes a stupid amount of time and you haven't had it, just drop me an email or whatever, and I'll sort it out, send you out another one, whatever. We'll see. And thirdly, on a slightly lighter note, the COVID cut. That seems to be the thing, doesn't it? Hair. I don't think we realise what an essential worker a bloke's barber was. I've seen so many posts on Facebook of people just with the number 1 or number 2 all over. I'm getting there. I'm getting desperate for a haircut myself. I'm dreading it. We had our first one here the other day. Billy, the eldest boy, done Harry's hair. I've got a little bit of vid which I'll show you. I was only allowed to do a little bit.
I don't like this before. You're annoying me a little bit. I'm cutting my hair. Can I stop fucking whinging? Doing a brilliant job.
That's what some people like.
Harder than I thought it was. Sit down. Oh.
Started off all right, all with good intentions. They were doing a skin fade and he was going to do this, that and the other. Harry's quite particular about his hair. I wasn't allowed to video the end result. Billy did it for a while and then Dee took over. And it ended up, as we always knew it would end up when they started, with a number 2 all over. So if one day you see me sat in front of this mic with a crew cut, you'll know what's going on. In fact, if I do get it done, I'll video it. God, I'm really not looking forward to it. But anyway, on with the show. So have a little slurp of tea, which has gone nearly cold, unfortunately. Where were we? Where did we end up last time? Keith, returning shoulders, and me trotting off home afterwards with a big hangover. So that was, what was that, sort of July time. Maybe late July by then, not really sure where we got up to. But yeah, let's say sort of late July time. So we had the whole sort of summer ahead on Horton. It was a beautiful lake to fish in the summer, absolutely amazing. But because of the clarity of the water, it was gin clear. I mean, like tap water clear, and it had got very, very weedy by this stage, by sort of midsummer. And as such, the fish would come right in close because of the cover of the weed. And when they emerged from the cover of the weed, if you were sort of hiding behind a bush or sitting up a tree, nice and quiet, weren't clanging and banging about, the sights I saw on there that summer were absolutely amazing. Bear in mind, these are fish of epic proportions. Not only are they, these historic warriors, they're massive. And they're jet black, you've got a lot of sunlight coming through the water. They've got decent tan. You could sit up. I've had so many memories of like sitting up little spindly trees, looking in and seeing them coming out of like weed beds, huge, great 2, 3, 4 of them. A big battalion of these great big submarines coming through and just cruising right underneath you. And you're looking down, you're going, oh, that's the parrot. Oh, there's Jack, there's Hardtail, there's the lady. These massive fish, all identifiable with their own huge scale patterns and that. It was absolutely epic. There was one particular swim there called the Whaley Bay, which was a bit of a misnomer, really. It wasn't a bay as such. There's like a straight bank that comes from the lodge, and it just bends a little bit, not even 45 degrees, it just sort of kicks round a little bit. But inside that little bit where it kicks, it was a lot shallower, so you got this little bend. You had one beautiful tree there that used to lean right out, sort of big overhang, a willow it was. It was very dangerous. I've always nicknamed willows snappers, because you have to be so careful when you're climbing a willow. 3 points of contact, that's the rule. 2 feet in one hand, 2 hands, 1 foot at all times. And if you move your foot, you have to have the inside of your foot basically brushing the limb of the tree. You move it out an inch, you get no warning. There's no bending and creaking and cracking. It just goes snap and you're gone. That branch is gone. And it didn't take long that summer for that tree to lose quite a few of its branches. So only the sort of more adapted tree climbing, like a monkey like me, could get right up into the best position. But when you were up there, you'd look down and the weed hit the surface there. It was a lot shallower, because bear in mind that the lake's sort of 18 foot, most of it. But I don't know maybe only 8 foot down there. It was a lot shallower, just in this little curve. And the weed had come up and it'd hit the surface, and then it'd go along the surface, so it'd make big tendrils. If you got up there and looked down, you could see these fish, when it got warm, moving into this shallower water. It was quite tricky to get bites from there, but basically they were there to sunbathe, to relax. It was a bit of shelter for them. It was shallower water. They did love it in there. But one particular guy who fished there a lot that first year, Pete Solchard, unfortunately he's no longer with us. He ended up with the nickname of Weedbed Willie, because that was his sort of swim. If he could get in there, he'd get in there, and he'd stay in there for the duration of his session. He was a lovely guy. He was a very, very particular angler. He was very particular in himself. He was one of the smartest carp anglers I've ever seen. He used to wear like plain green sort of army style trousers, but with creases down the front. I've never seen anyone fish with creases in their trousers before. It's a typical army shirt, but always ironed. Everything was absolutely perfect with Weedbed. And his fishing was very much like that as well. He used a lot of hemp and bits and pieces, and he was very, very particular. And as a result, he'd done very, very well out that swim. He had quite a few fish out there that first year. But like I say, he was a very good angler. So it was all sometimes quite hard to get in there, But if Pete was fishing, he'd be in there generally. But there was the rest of the lake, to choose from. And I'm very, very mobile, as I'm sure most of you know by now. And I used to spend most of my time just walking around the lake, climbing trees, looking here, looking there, and socialising along the way as well. We'd really started to get on with each other on the lake, especially after that sort of opening night or day before, the night before the opening night, when we'd spent all that time in the car park and sort of got our little, everyone was feeling each other out, and we got a little mates on the lake. And there was good points to stop at, like CP and Robbie, You know, they used to quite often fish together next to each other. Slough boys, tea drinkers, my God. Yeah, I drink tea. I love tea. If something goes wrong with my tea making kit when I'm fishing, I have to leave the lake to make sure it works before I can carry on fishing. Yeah, if I run out of gas or run out of milk or run out of tea or whatever, I have to have tea when I'm fishing. It's actually more important than having cold cider. They're saying something. But Robbie and CP, the kettle is literally never even halfway to cold. They just drink and drink and drink with the old pump up Coleman's cookers, permanently on the go. So when you're walking around on a hot day, you see CP or Robbie set up somewhere, you know you're going to get a cup of tea as soon as you walk in the swim. Good old boys. So, you know, little bits like that, you know, and you know who's probably going to have a carrier bag full of cold beer or whatever. Because Robbie and Chrissy, CP, they weren't drinkers, you know, alcohol-wise, just tea. They might have the odd spicy fag, but, you know, no sort of, not into alcohol. I don't think Robbie, I think Robbie was teetotal. CP would have the odd beer, but they definitely weren't drinkers, but God, they did like their tea. So yeah, I had my little circuit. I'd go round and round and round, and I had Fat Sam with me as well by now. I'd managed to get her in, you know, straight away. I think it was the third session, I think, before I brought her down there. And it wasn't long before a couple of other dogs sprung up on the scene. Robbie actually had a little Jack Russell called Gypsy. Gosh, it was a miserable little cow. Didn't like Fat Sam, didn't like anybody really. Typical sort of old Jack Russell, you know, snarl as soon as you see something. But yeah, he'd started to bring Gypsy along, and a couple of the other. There was the odd dog here and there. So the no dog rule had just been abandoned. Fat Sam had broken down the defences. I remember the first time I brought her up with me, I took her round to introduce her to the head bailiff, who'd said, you know, if I didn't have a dog sitter for her, if she was well behaved and she was on a lead, then it might not be too much of a problem. Well, she wasn't well behaved and she wasn't on a lead, but the head bailiff absolutely loved her, and she loved him. So that was perfect, you know. Sam was on the firm. A few more dogs, like I say, started to turn up, and it was just nice. You know, I wasn't ever planning to fish without her. I was always going to get her a ticket, as it were, and I'd manage that. But yeah, on my walks, going back to the sort of circuits I used to walk, Church Bay was a big area for fish spotting, especially right down the bottom of Church Bay. There was no swims on the bottom of this bay, and you could crawl in the bushes. There was actually a little grassy gap, and you could get in there and you could see them coming right in, big, deep, sharp, sort of slopey margins, and you could watch them just coming along the edge there. Excuse me. And the Dog Bay, so this Church Bay and the Dog Bay were formed by a small point where I'd actually started my first night of the season was on there. Ended up being called Springgates Point, but at the time it wasn't. So this small point right in the middle of the lake formed these two bays, both at the top end. Got Church Bay, and the other one was called Dog Bay because of the kennels that back onto it. And you could hear the dogs barking all the time. Now this Dog Bay had one massive tree. I mean, huge, great big tree just in the first swim in the entrance. I think we used to call it the slope. And it had this one massive tree, and it was quite hard to climb because there wasn't a lot of branches low down, and the actual limb of the tree was huge around. So you had to sort of, you know, wrap your arms and dig your feet in and get up high enough to get to the first branch. But when you got up there was a big limb used to hang out over the water, and I used to get up there. I don't think I ever saw anybody else up there, to be honest, but I used to get up there anyway. Get out on this limb, and you got to a point where you could look down through this probably 10 or 12 feet of gin clear water, to see right down the bottom of the slope. And there was something on the bottom there, like I think it was either a rock or a chunk of sunken tree, but there was this object on the bottom, and the fish used to love it. They used to use it as a rubbing post. So you'd see, you know, you'd get up the tree and you'd wait, there'd be nothing there, and you'd wait and you'd wait, and then you'd see a couple of fish right out, you know, in the bay, and you knew they were coming, and they'd work their way around the bay, always on the same route, and they'd break through this. There was a big bed of weed down the bottom. They'd break through that, and then they'd come up this margin, and they were heading for this. It was their scratching post. So you'd see these fish waddle in, and as soon as they zoomed in on the whatever it was, the object on the bottom, they'd drop down, puff out a little bit of bubbles, clear the swim bladder so they could sink down, go down, straight up to this, let's call it a rock, straight up to this rock, and then they just flank on their sides, and you see a big burst of scales, either linear scales or big golden common scales or whatever, and you'd see which fish, you could identify each individual fish as they hit down on this rock and just scratch, probably taking off parasites and stuff on their flanks. And as such, around this rock, it got clearer and clearer and clearer where they'd displaced the silt. So in the end, it was very easy to see. It was quite shiny all around the backside of it. Now, those sort of spots, they're not ideal for a bite because that's not why the fish are there, but they go there a lot. So it becomes very, very hard to ignore, not to try to get a bite there. So if you've got a spot that fish are going to visit over and over again most days, you've got to give it a go, haven't you? And I did quite a bit of time just single rod fishing out there, just for an hour here, an hour there. Most, not most days, but most sessions I'd have a rod there at some stage. The problem is it's very, very hard, isn't it? Once you've got a rod there, because you can't see it from when you're on the ground, it's very hard not to get up the tree and watch what's going on around your bait, which is always going to end in disaster, isn't it? Because you can guarantee if you're going to get a bite, it's going to be when you're up the tree. But in all the time I fished there, I only managed one bite, I think, from there, and that was a fish called we were naming some of the others as we went if they weren't 18, and we named that one Floppy Tail for obvious reasons, because it's got this huge, great floppy tail. It was a funny fish. It was a mid-20, I think, low to mid-20, I can't remember. I think it was 22, just from my dubious memory. But the thing I remember about it most was the smell. I mean, some fish do have an odour, slightly different to others. But this thing stunk. It absolutely stunk on the mat. But I do have a piece of video of that fish on the bank with some hideous yellow clothing I've got on. So I'm going to pop that up and show that to you now. I've actually got quite a lot of video in this particular episode. It just so happens that people with video cameras were there for a few of the stories that we're going to cover. So let's have a quick look at that first.
And this one in big tail.
Smelly, I think.
Compo.
Probably a second. Plenty of leeches about and all the fish.
He's a bloody bull-nosed fish, isn't it? Big old tail, though.
Like I say, it hardly ever comes on.
I think it's alright.
There we go. Proper bit of old footage for you there. And like I said, just the way it's happened, that in this particular episode, I have got quite a lot of that old footage. Obviously, it's grainy and it's ancient. Transferred from little tiny cassettes onto what happened. We made, over the 3 years, there was a more and more video shot. The second year and third year, there's quite a lot more. The first year, there was only 2 guys with cameras. But anyway, all of this footage was sort of gathered together by me and Keith, and we made, at the end of the third year, not very many, maybe 25, I don't know, it wasn't very many, VHS cassettes, like pre-CD clonking great tapes that we used to watch. and we made them with soundtracks. We done backing tracks. So some of the video will have music soundtrack on it. Some of them I'll cut that off and talk over, but whatever. So we made this finished production, if you like, which we just gave to the members. You know, not all the members, but our little sort of inner circle, if you like. And it had some really, really good footage on it. But what's happened since then, I think Sticky Bean got the finished VHS, and then he's managed to digitalise it, and then that's been sent to me. It's lost quality all the way through this process. So what you're seeing is what's left, but there is no more. I actually have found, I've got to tell you, I can't tell you too much about it because you will be seeing it. I have found some of the best footage imaginable. We always said that we'd never show it. You know, it was a personal thing. But that was a long time ago. No one's going to care now. It was 30 years ago or whatever. But at the end of the second season, so we're jumping way ahead here. We had a massive party in the lodge, and we had a poetry recital. We all had to write poems about each other, and I've got the footage of this drunken night in the lodge with some, not all, just some of the. It's hilarious. It really is. It's just so good. I watched it last night for the first time for years and years and years, and I had Keith on the phone at the time, and I was holding the phone next to the computer so he could hear it. I could hear him laughing. I was laughing. It just brought back so many memories. That'll be in a few episodes' time. Anyway, where was I going with this? I go off on such tangents, I know. Yeah, so you've just seen that video footage. While you were, that we got to that stage, I just shot downstairs, took the memory card out, and thought I'd see how we were getting on with the microphone in a new position. I think a lot of the problem with the crackling and that was because it was clipped to me that the lead's rubbish. But I just put it in the computer, and I found my new button that does the hiss reduction, and I was well pleased. So you're probably hearing this a lot clearer than you were on the last one. So I'm pleased about that. And on the way back, I got attacked by one of my chickens. I don't know whether I've told you, but we keep chickens. 2 of the hens have gone broody and they're sitting. We've managed to get them. We haven't got cockerel anymore, but a friend up the road's got one. And we've got some fertilised eggs. And 2 of them are, mothering, rearing, whatever it is, sitting on these eggs. And they only come off once a day, just quickly for something to eat, but they get really shitty. And I just came out the gate and walked up back to the garage, and one of them chased me up the path, going mental at me. It was, bless her. Proper got the protective mothering instinct. But anyway, back to Horton. So I've had this fish out of the mouth of the Dog Bay. So it was a bit tricky in the summer. The sort of middle of summer is never really the best time, is it? The fishing there would take a floater. I tried quite a bit of floater fishing on there. Wasn't overly successful, apart from one particular incident, which we'll get to very, very shortly. One guy that was very good there on the surface fishing was Del Smith, who went on to become the head bailiff on there. Really, he lived there in the end. There was next to the lodge was a couple of caravans, and he ended up moving into one and became sort of an on-site bailiff, if you like. Again, somebody that's unfortunately passed away since those days. But he was Stalker Del, we used to call him. That's what he used to do. He used to go, similar to me. He was always out there stalking and doing what have you. But he loved his floater fishing. And I remember seeing him many times, very first light, be out there getting them going on the floaters. Now the grass carp in there, I probably haven't mentioned them yet, in fact I'm sure I haven't. There was a small head of grass carp in there which were very big by national standards. In fact, it went on to do the British record. At this time, on the first year, I suppose they were, I can't really remember, maybe upper doubles, up 18s and stuff like, which were big grass carp. I think when it done the record, maybe it was a scraper 20 or low 20. I can't remember the exact details. But Dale, you'd quite often see him hook into a fish in the morning, and it'd be one of these big grasses, or occasionally one of the proper ones, one of the actual carp. But yeah, like I say, that I did do a bit, but apart from this one particular occasion, I wasn't overly successful with it. But yeah, I love my stalking. I love my up close and personal creeping around and having a look. And if I can see the bait and I can see the fish, then I'm double happy. I really absolutely love that sort of style of fishing. And yeah, so I sort of spent the summer just mainly with a little bag and dotting about, a couple of rods here, there, and everywhere. It was very different that first year to the second year, in as much as the lake was more open to other people. Like now, if you go up there, it's completely enclosed, and rightly so, to be honest, because there's a lot of, I don't know what you call it, skullduggery goes on around that neck of the woods. A few undesirables that you really don't want walking around your lake. But back then, that first year, it was quite open access. You could walk through the back of, out the back of Church Bay. There's some woods there, and there's a little housing estate, and you could just walk through there. In fact, we used to walk through there on a daily basis to the local shop, which we call Boss's shop, just your typical sort of corner shop, and the Indian guy that ran it called everybody boss. What do you want, boss? Hello, boss. So it became Boss's shop. Not my little Indian impersonation there, you got to wobble your head as well. But he was a lovely fella, but he called everyone boss, so it became Boss's shop. But his wife used to make these chicken tikka rolls. They were to die for. They were French bread rolls, great big things, with this homemade chicken tikka in, and that was like a daily pilgrimage. Someone would go over with a list of how many chicken tikka rolls we all wanted. And other people used to walk, we used to walk on and off the lake, people used to walk onto the lake. Katie was one of them. Katie was an old deer. She was great. A typical sort of, she had grey, white, long hair, and quite often used to wear an apron, like old ladies sometimes do, with a pouch in the front. And in the pouch in the front, she would have bread, chopped up bread, because the geese and the swans on there were Katie's, basically. I don't know whether she'd put them on there, but she'd adopted them. And she lived in a house that just backed onto the potato field, halfway to the pub. Now, Katie used to come down every day and feed the swans and the geese, so you daren't, be caught scaring them off or shouting at them or waving a landing net, or even worse, throwing stones at them to get them away from your lines. If Katie saw you was in trouble. Now, Katie became very, very friendly with me because she loved Fat Sam. And in the end, in her apron pocket, as well as the bread for the swans and the geese and that, she used to bring custard creams just for Fat Sam. But if there's another dog there, she wouldn't let them have them. They were Fat Sam's, and that was it. Fat Sam obviously loved her, used to follow her nearly all the way home when she went. So yeah, Katie was a sort of a permanent fixture on the lake. In fact, I remember one day, I remember it, I was never allowed to forget it. There was 4 or 5 of us, summer's afternoon, we decided nothing was happening on the lake. We were going to pop up the pub, have a few beers. It was literally, you got the lake, the potato field, and you could see the 5 bells or 6 bells, I can't remember how many bells there were, just at the back of the field. But to get there, you didn't cut across the farmer's crop. You just walked around the edge of the field, and there was a little footpath, and Katie's house was there. There was 4 or 5 bungalows, and they backed right on to this footpath with just little picket fences, so you could see straight into the gardens and the back of the house. Anyway, 4 or 5 of us are wandering up there one day. Katie's in her garden. She used to grow fruit and stuff. She had fruit trees and what have you. We're walking up the path, and she's seen me coming, and at the top of her little shrill voice, she's just gone, "Oh, Dave," she said. "Dave," she said, "have you seen my plums?" Of course, everybody just fell about. Katie's not got it at all, and I'm just like, "Oh my God, Katie, you have so stitched me up here." and you could hear it echoing over the lake for weeks, probably months afterwards. Laney, have you seen my plums? It's just like, how, it's done me up like a kipper, really. Never ever heard the last of that. But she was a lovely old girl, bless her. And there was a few other people who used to come round on a regular basis. There was one girl, I think she was a hostess or something, lived in this little housing estate, and she proper had the hots for me. She really did. She used to walk around the lake. She never used to speak to anybody. She used to walk around the lake, and she was actively looking for where I was fishing, and then she'd come down and make a fuss of the dog. And just generally, she was up for it, if you like. In fact, we bumped into her in the pub a couple of times. She'd come over and sit and chat, and that became a bit of a thing. You'd hear someone shout, "Laney, your bird's coming," and I don't even know her name. But yeah, so there were people. There was one bloke one morning I remember, very early morning, first light. I heard Sam growling. She couldn't be bothered to get out of bed to bark, but I heard her letting me know there was someone outside the bivvy. And I got out of the bivvy, and there was a bloke stood next to me by this little spindly tree. And he was looking a bit furtive. He had one hand behind his back. He was obviously hiding something. I didn't want to make it too obvious and sort of look behind him, but I sort of, "You all right, mate?" He's like, yeah. Obviously not an angler, just a fella, donkey jacket and one hand behind his back. I said, "All right, how up to, like?" So, "Oh, nothing, just come down." I think he said to see the geese or feed the geese or something. I thought, I ain't too sure about you. And so it was bang early in the morning. And anyways, I stopped talking and it became a bit awkward, and then he sort of half turned and shuffled on. And as he went, I see he'd got a double-barrel shotgun behind him, like a proper shotgun hidden behind his back. And I was like, I don't know what I reckon on that. I think he'd come down to shoot a goose. That's what I reckon. Either shoot a goose or shoot one of us. But he disappeared, and thankfully we never saw him again. But anyway, again, I've gone off on another complete tangent. So my little bit of floater fishing action, well, quite a large bit of floater fishing action. Like I said, I'd not managed to catch one off of the surface up until this was probably by now second week of September, which, as I've probably said already, is one of my favourite times of the year. That's when I caught my fish, my best fish, my first 30 from Harefield. I'd had loads of good results. I was always very excited when it gets into double figures of September, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, that sort of, that time. Always been a really, really good time for me. So anyway, I rocked up at Horton, driven round, got round to the car park next to the lodge, and there's only one car there, and I recognised it as Snowy's. A guy called Snowy. He was an older guy, had white hair, hence the moniker Snowy. I think he might have worked in a tackle shop, actually, but he was a tackle shop, in his own right. He had everything. You get these anglers, they like the tackle as much as the fishing, which is fair enough. Nothing wrong with that, Probably support the industry that pays my wages when we're not in lockdown anyway, when I was getting paid. Snowy had the lot, to the point where he actually had two bivvies. He had the bivvy that he lived in, slept in, which was immaculate. Had the light there, had the bivvy table, I think he had the telly and the heater and little drawers with every item of tackle. You couldn't name an item of tackle. Even if it was brand new, it had just come out, he'd have it. And then outside his bivvy, he had a little carpet and a mat and everything. Outside his bivvy, he had another bivvy. I think that was an open front, more like a brolly thing that faced towards him. And in there, he's got his outside cooker, because he's got an inside cooker in the other bivvy. I think even his trolley used to fold up and go in the outside bivvy, and he'd have an outside chair, an inside chair, and it literally, Snowy owned it. Whatever it was, Snowy owned it. So I've wandered around. He's sat up in one of the sort of comfortable swims on the north bank, on the potato field bank. and he's gone round the back of him and seen the two bivvies. I think he saw me and sort of stuck his hand up or whatever. And I've wandered down. I'm headed for the Church Bay now because it's, like I say, the Church Bay is a very good area when the weed's up and it's warm, and it was a really warm day. I knew there'd be fish in there. So I've rocked up, I've gone into the mouth of the Church Bay, and straight away I can see carp just under the surface, quite a few of them as well. You know, occasionally just tenting, you see the backs just touching the surface. I remember there was a few smaller commons, might have even been a couple of grasses, can't remember, a few smaller ones anyway, and then dotted in amongst and around them some slightly better ones, 30-pounders. And there was one fish out the back, like sort of behind the pack, that was noticeably bigger. His back was just trimming the surface and it had a big dark hump on its back. I thought it was shoulders at first, but the more I looked, it wasn't quite the right shape. I couldn't see it like really clearly, but I could see it enough to know that it was sort of, you know, a good mid-30 at least. So I shot off and armed myself with floater gear, you know, just one rod, I think, catapult, bag, just all the little bits I need. Bag of dog biscuits. So obviously I've got Fat Sam right next to me now. She ain't leaving me at all. Got back into the mouth of the Church Bay, and I remember there was only light, but there was a little breeze going in, perfect really, coming across the main section of the lake and going into the bay. Ideal for drifting mixers through there. So I fired out a couple of pouches of the chum mixers on the surface, like way up from the fish, and they've started drifting down. And the first drift's gone across straight over the top of them. They're paid absolutely no interest at all. So got another drift going out, only a couple of pouchfuls, you know, so 50 biscuits or whatever, and the next drift's gone down and sort of gone over, and they've come up. They know it's there. You know, you can see they're getting, not agitated, but they're getting a bit excited about it. So when the next lot have come through, as soon as it come over the fish, one of these little commons has come up, bop, bop, you nailed a couple. And that's sometimes all it takes, isn't it? You know, carp are very competitive with feeding. They don't like to miss out. And as soon as the common's taken a couple, one of the mirrors has come up, Dorothy's had one. They're not going mad, they're not like Pac-Man in it on the surface, but they've had a few of this drift of mixers, so I put a few more out and they've gone in, and then they're on it, you know, then they're up and feeding. And the bait's not, yeah, it's opening out as it's drifting in, so it's quite a spread of bait, if you like, and some are out the back and some are close. Most of the smaller fish were closer to where I was, and this big one's still out the back, and a couple of mixers have gone out the back. And he's lifted up, and he's lifted up this great big hump, dark humps come up, and this big gobs open, and boom, he's had one, and then he's had another one. I thought, here's the fish. If I'm going to make one cast in here, although the smaller ones are feeding heavier and probably a lot easier to catch, I thought if I'm going to make one cast, because as soon as you hook one, they're all going to disappear. It's going to be for that one at the back. So I sort of got the swim going, and I thought I'd probably be better off if I went round the bottom of the bay, only 50 yards around the bottom, and like I say, that's where the mixers were going anyway, so the fish are sort of tending to naturally drift deeper into the bay. I thought, well, I get round there, I'll get a better angle, so I've gone round there, and there's this little gap, not a swim, just a gap. It's sort of a little bit enclosed, it's got a big tree hanging over the top. Anyway, I got in this gap, and I've looked out, and now I can see them from a different angle. And I can see the mixers in different patches, and now the big fish is to my right, and it's not very far out at all, and the bulk of the fish are sort of in front of me and slightly to the left. So gone back round, put out mixers further, so that when I got back in the swim they were only coming in on the right hand side, and I'd sort of split the fish, if you like. So I've got this group down here to the left which I didn't want to fish for. And I've got this one solo fish on his own, which by now is quite close. He's followed the wind in. You know, he's just down here. A couple of rod lengths, 3 rod lengths, whatever. Not very far out at all. So I thought, right, now's the time for the cast. And I was using one of my lighter rods. I think I had some Sportex rods or something. 2-pounders. little controller, I had £7 main line, I had this little reel, I'm still using the 55s. £7 hook link, about 5 foot long or whatever, and a super specialist hook, which are tiny, size 8, you know, and a single chum mixer on a hair. So I got in there and I got down on my knees, sort of lined it all up and that. Like I say, I got this branch hanging in the way, and I want to go right behind him and slowly drift it down in front of his face where he's feeding. I've given it that, I think I've trimmed the bush on the way out there. I think it's all tumbled and jumbled, it's gone in the wrong place. It's gone in the water, the controller's on its side, I can see loops of line, it's a disaster. So I quietly as I can, I brought it in, I've looked at it, and the hook link is just like a jumble, you know, like a bit of really bad knitting. It's all loops and knots, and I thought, oh God, you know, and I can still see him feeding out there, and you start to get the shakes, don't you, and get a bit agitated up there trying to pick the bloody knots apart. And it got to a stage I was down to the last knot. Sometimes when you pull them, that if you've got a loop, they just slide apart. Perfect. So I pulled this and it went tight. And I thought, oh, that's it, I've ruined it. I'm going to have to do a new hook link, which meant biting off this hook link and the controller because I didn't have any spare hook link, and then taking a bit of main line and making it, you know, that was what I had to do, make a new hook link. So I put it in my teeth and I pulled like that to snap it. And as I pulled, it's gone dunk, and the knots come undone. And I thought, oh, perfect. And I held the hook link up to the skyline and looked at it. It's only £7 line. It goes along and it's got a perfect flat in it, where the shape of my tooth. Well, I don't look too healthy. And I pulled it, giving it as much strain as I dare, and it held. And I thought, well, it might still be £7. You know, it's still, there's none missing per se. It's just flatter. Probably wasn't £7, but anyway. I thought I was so desperate to get a bait on this fish, and he's, you know, I thought he's going to go in a minute. He's just going to drift off. So I got back in position and paid a bit more attention to the cast. Flicked it out there. It's gone perfectly. It's gone way beyond him. I've trapped the line. Thrown the bait forward, the hook link straight. It's gone in without too much of a splash. And I've teased it back until it's right in position. And this fish has sort of circled and come up, and it's facing me now. The controllers and the hook bait's this side of the fish, my side of the fish, so everything is absolutely perfect. And he's come up and he can't see the line, he can only see the mixer. And I will never forget that picture of this fish. He came up, opened his mouth, and it's right close, and I can see dry land down its throat, you know, as it opened up, and I saw the water flood into his mouth, this vortex of surface water with my hook bait. And I saw it disappear down, and I'm like that, desperate to strike, but his mouth's still open. And as his mouth came together, as he sunk back down, the second his lips touched together, just lifted the rod, not major, just thump like that. The tip stayed where it was, and it just bent straight into him like that. And there was a moment, you get that moment of, I don't know what to do next. He doesn't realise, or he's just realising that he's made a very, very big mistake. So you get that split second of nothing, and then woof, away he went, the old clutch going, and shot off. He's starting to get a bit of momentum, big lot of power. Feel the old tail flapping, and he's crashed into a weed bed, and all gone solid. So there I am, rod bent over, attached to a big fish, big load of weed, £7 line, tooth mark in the hook link. And I'm thinking, this is like dodgy. Anyway, I started to put some pressure on it, wind down, put some more pressure on it, and it's solid. The weed's not giving, the fish ain't coming out of the weed. And sometimes in this situation, what I do is I bounce the rod, and I find that pulls the weed like that, and it's more likely to uproot the weed than just constant pressure. So I'm bouncing it, and thinking, don't just fly out, the hook. Bouncing it, and then there's another kickback, and then it's all started to move, and sure enough, all these bubbles are at the surface, and this massive weed bed is now on the move with the fish powering it. So it's obviously not going fast, it weighs a ton, and it's just sort of slowly bouncing up and down, and getting closer and closer, big hefty weed bed. And as it's got, you know, nearly within netting range, the fish has kicked again and the weed started to fall off. So he's come out of the weed and he's circled about. I thought, this is it, this is my big chance. And he's come up on the surface and I've seen it and it's enormous. You know, this fish, it is massive. And it's come up on the top and I've fed the net out and I've got his head straight over the net, his peck over the net. So he's like sort of a third over the net, if you like. And I've seen his flank and I've seen this one black scale on its side on this big, deep flank. And I know what fish it is. It's Jack. Yeah, it's Jack the net ripper. It's the biggest carp in the lake. He's a 40-pounder on this frail tackle. And as he's got halfway up the net cord, he's realised, you know, it's all over. And he's just, and he's kicked and he's gone. I've quickly undone the clutch and he's just off. And he's gone through the remnants of the first weed bed and smashed into a second weed bed and all gone solid again. I just thought, oh my God, by now, my knees are shaking. You know, I'm shaking all over. My heart's going boom, 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 boom in my chest. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, you know, I know what I've got on it. I've got the ultimate prize. I've got the biggest fish in the lake. And I had to start all over again, dragging him out of this weed bed. Luckily, he was proper active by now, and he's doing as much as I am, kicking his way out of the weed. I've got him into the first sort of clear gully. The line's still trapped in the first weed bed. I've got him back to there, and you know, let him keep moving, giving him line, pull him back so that he didn't embed into the weed. And I've managed to get him through both of these weed beds. And he's come in close and he's come up and he's circled on the top and I've just slid the net straight under him. As soon as the sort of V of the net's underneath him, I've just dropped the rod straight down so that he fell down in the water and I've just jumped straight in the lake. I've no idea why. And I've jumped straight in, I've grabbed the arms of the landing net and I've scooped it up. There's still loads of weed and stuff hanging out. And I've scooped him in the net and pulled him up to the edge and I've looked in there and sure enough, it's Jack, you know. 40 plus fish, but it'd always been 40 plus, on a floater on this poxy little setup. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh my God, what have I just done? You know, this is just like the ultimate. It's a 40-pound carp. So I've secured the net and everything, and I thought, well, I've got no way of weighing it. My scales only go up to 32 pounds. I was talking about them before, the 32 pound Avons. I just thought, oh, you know, snowy. Snowy, you'll have it. Snowy, you'll have scales that will go to 40, above 40 pounds. He'll have everything. So I've run round to his bivvy. It's Snowy, Snowy. I said, I've just called Jack. I said, you know, have you got any big scales? And I'll never forget, he looked up at me and his words, his first sentence was something like, oh, that's not fair. He said, you've only just got here and I've been here for days. And I thought, that's one way of looking at it. You know, I've been quite active in the half an hour I've been here. He was still in his bivvy. But anyway, he dug out these scales. He said, they're a brand new, perfect set of whatever, 44-pound scales. And he's given them to me. He said, there you go. So I've taken the scales, I've started to walk off, I've looked behind me and I thought, oh, you're not coming then? You know, if I was fishing somewhere and somebody had caught the biggest fish in the lake right next to me, I'd want to see it, but Snowy didn't. Anyway, so, oh, dogs are kicking off. Somebody's turning up. 1 second, I'll just sort them out. Right, back. I don't know what she was barking at, probably some pheasant or something. She's bizarre. She won't let anything anywhere near the garden. But she completely ignores the chickens. But she can tell the difference between a chicken and a pheasant. And yeah, okay, there is a difference. There's not a lot of difference if you're a dog, but she can. So anything lands anywhere near our garden, she'll bark at it and scare it off. But anyway, where were we? So I've got the scales off of Snowy. He's obviously not coming out to do any photos, so I need someone to do the photos for me. And I've heard a car pull in to the car park, and I thought whoever that is, that'll do. So I've legged it round there. The fish is nice and secure in the net, all pegged out. I've legged it up to the lodge, and it's Sticky Bean. I thought, oh, that's a result. Sticky Bean. Sticky Bean's got one of the 2 video cameras, you know, and he's handy with a camera as well. So I've got him, told him what the crack is. He's all well excited. Now, think, I don't know whether Sticky Bean had a very early mobile, because it was sort of pre-mobile for most of us. We used to have to walk to the phone box. I definitely didn't walk to the phone box. But Sticky Bean sort of had everything, a bit like Snowy, but not on the fishing tackle front. But he had all the modern stuff, like a camcorder and probably a phone. Somehow we managed to make a phone call to Keith, who was due down working not too far away. I remember it wasn't very long before Keith turned up, 2 or 3 others, and we all made our way down. I was back down with the fish by then. We got the fish out, we've weighed it. It's 40 pounds, 2 ounces, I believe it was. And it was dead accurate because they were these brand new, perfect scales. Weighed the fish, 40 pound, 2 ounces. Everyone gathered round when we took all the photos, and because Sticky was there, I've got some amazing video. So I think what I'm going to do, I'll show you the video first, and then we'll talk about the details that you'll see within the video afterwards. So let's crack on with that and get that up now.
Come on, mate, I can come all this way.
Oh, hold on.
That's it.
That's the shot.
Sweet. Oh, do it again.
Don't like me, is it? Got plenty to get hold of anyway.
Slippery, yeah. The joyous little fish. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Joe. Yeah, sweet.
Oh, this is just amazing.
That's it. Smile. Yep.
Whose camera's it? Ah, shit. Yeah, good. I like it.
Hold it out a little bit.
Oh yeah, who knows what that is?
Result.
Well done, son.
Yeah.
So, as you can see from that footage, the clothes. Now, I've already told the story. I was stalking up close and personal to probably one of the biggest fish in the country, and a very, very famous fish, very hard to catch fish, very wise fish. All of these carp in Horton were, and that was my stalking kit: a bright pink t-shirt, shabby old pair of white football shorts, and a stupid floppy hat, which might just go to show you that, you know, do we always need realtree? Because there wasn't any of us on that lake wearing anything that even resembled realtree that year, and we managed all right. You know, he obviously didn't see me. He was happy to feed. But yeah, I mean, what a moment. It was just, you know, and it was great to have Keith there as well, because briefly Keith had caught a bigger carp than me, but not for long. Yeah, so I was back on top in our own little personal battle for the biggest carp, with Jack the net ripper. Oh my God, on a floater. That is a day I will never ever forget, and obviously I've got that footage, you know, to look back on. It's great, that old footage. Like I say, it is all grainy and not the best quality, but it's just so nice to sort of have it there, really. Now that session, I'd say that was right at the beginning of that session, and a very hot, very lovely sunny day, and obviously there was people there then, you know, Keith and what have you. So I'd called Jack. We've got to have a celebration, haven't we? So I can't remember the actual details of it, and there's probably a very, very good reason for that. But a lot of alcohol was consumed, and I haven't mentioned it yet, but I would imagine that the bottle of Dubonnet came out. There was this, I don't know if all of you know what Dubonnet is. It used to be a thing. It's a bit like red wine. It looks like red wine, but it ain't red wine. It's a vermouth or a vermouth, like a sort of a cross between wine and sherry, like red Cinzano. It's absolutely disgusting. But I did mention that CP and Robbie weren't drinkers at all. But we used to have regular little parties around the lake, sitting there in the sun, having beer and wine and what have you. And obviously, they'd turn up, CP especially. And one day I think he decided one day he'd gone to the shop. He was off to the shop, and we said, "I'll grab some red wine while you're there, will you?" Now, not being a drinker, we don't know anything about red wine at all. And he'd come back proudly with this bottle of Dubonnet. He said, "Here I go, is that all right?" Plonked it down there in the middle. We'd gone, "Yeah, that's great, CP. Lovely, thank you very much." And everyone's looked at each other and thought, Dubonnet, who the hell's going to drink that? Now, this bottle of Dubonnet, it never got opened. It ended up in every gathering we had. At every gathering, whoever was left with it from the week before or the party before, would bring along the bottle of Dubonnet. You turn up with all your beers and what have you, and your food and your picnic and everything. And the bottle of Dubonnet would come out, and whoever the unfortunate angler was whose swim the gathering was in, when he had to clear up the next morning, everybody's empties and what have you, and put more in the bin bags to go home, there'd be this unopened bottle of Dubonnet. It just became like a badge of honour or whatever. The bottle of Dubonnet just got passed round and round and round. But we used to have some really good little afternoon socials on there. Just up the road at Whaley, because Whaley's right next to Horton. The two villages sort of butt up against each other. There's a little, or used to be, a little delicatessen. It's actually just a house, and the guy's had converted the bottom of his house into this little shop. And you'd go in there, and it was like an old-fashioned sweet shop. They used to have the jars of sweets and that around. Well, he'd have, a jar of pickled garlic cloves and a jar of olives stuffed with anchovy and blah blah, and he'd have all these cheeses and hams and like the Spanish hams that you carve really fine, and all this sort of lovely stuff in there. And you'd go in there and you'd have a small pack of this, some of them, 6 of them, 2 of them. And quite regularly we'd dispatch somebody over there, and they'd come back, we'd all chip in, and they'd come back, and we'd set out and have a great big picnic on the bank with a load of beer and a load of wine and a bottle of Dubonnet, obviously, that never got opened. But yeah, after the sort of celebrations of Jack was over, I still had 2 or 3, my whole session in front of me, really, to be honest. But the weather changed. I remember the next day the weather changed. The fish had all moved out the bay. I think they all disappeared with the palaver with Jack. And a low pressure came in. And when you get that first proper low pressure in September, pressure plummets, big banks of cloud come rolling in, usually from the southwest. That's the time, isn't it? That's feed up time. And the fish had all moved out into the centre. They were showing out there quite heavily. And Sticky Bean had gone in on the captors, which is sort of one of the middle swims on the far side from the potato field church side, and I'd gone into the ski slope, which is dead opposite each other basically, and we were both fishing out. I suppose the middle's about 85 yards, something like that. So we're both fishing out there in our own zones, but just both out towards the middle. And that night, Sticky had, or early hours of the morning, I can't remember which, Sticky had a bite out there, and they were, like I say, they were showing quite well. One of us was going to get a fish, and he's had this fish, and I've tried round there to do the photo. In fact, a few of us have gone round there. I've got a lovely photo which I'll ping up of Sticky, like sort of undoing the fish on the mat, and everybody gathered about, and in it, in it you can see Phil Thompson with one of the video cameras. I think it's Phil anyway. So he's opened up the sack and he's got hardtail. Now hardtail is another one of the 18, the original Longfield 18. So named obviously for the shape of its tail. It's got this perfect heart-shaped tail. Beautiful fish. I can't remember the low, mid 33, something like that. The weight's totally immaterial. And that's the first time I've seen this fish on the bank, and he's hiked it up, and it's an immaculate fish. And we've got a lovely bit of video, so again, I'll stick that up now, and I'll transport you straight back to 1990. What would it have been? 2 by now? Don't know. The 90s anyway, so let's go back there.
Oh, fuck me, I'm strangling myself.
Nearly there, Mark.
Yeah, almost.
Make sure your arms
Take
don't
some
touch the
of mine,
water. Luke?
Oh. Cheers, Tom.
Oh, where's the thing?
I can't take any on this. I'll get out there with you. Liner.
So there we go. I think the smile and the little mad fit at the end really says it all, doesn't it? I've just had a quick look myself. I think actually the photo I showed you of us all gathered on the bank corresponds better to the next part of the tail. But there you go. This isn't a professional setup, is it? It's just me doing my best. So yeah, that was the end. The only other result that session. But you know, what more do you need really? Got a 40 pounder and a 30 pounder on the bank, 2 big old historic fish. But the weather stayed, the low pressure stayed. In fact, the weather stayed the same for the next week or so. I couldn't wait to get back up there. Probably didn't wait very long, to be honest. Probably slapped up a bit of Artex on a couple of ceilings as quick as I possibly could and got down there. But Sticky had beaten me. Well, I say beat me to it. He went back. He was there before I got there, and he was back in the captain's return swim, which was so named because it had a very shallow margin. And way back in somebody's book, I think it might be, I don't know, it was Hutch's or Maddox's book or something. There was a photo of someone in the water putting a fish back, and the caption was "The captor returns," and this was the perfect swim for doing, like you've just seen in the video, those sort of captor return shots. So the swim became called the captor returns. That's where the name came from. But anyway, like I say, the next session, Sticky was back in there. I was back in the ski slope. I believe, not 100% about that, but I know Sticky was back in the captors. Because he repeated the sort of action on that session as well. In fact, he improved on it because he had a brace of fish in one night or one morning. And again, you know, all the photographers gathered round, and I think that's the actual photo. That's where the photo should have gone, but hey ho. And we all set up for this amazing sight of 2 of Horton's finest on the bank, one of which was the lady, which I've already spoke about. Now the lady, as I said before, it was the original, if that makes sense. In the original home of Longfield, the lady was the original carp in there. Ancient, I don't know, 40 years old minimum, I would imagine, absolute minimum. Now I did, talking of the lady, just going off piste a little bit again, I was speaking to Keith the other day because, you know, like I mentioned, I've been speaking to everybody involved as the sort of story here progresses. People I fish with on various lakes have all been in touch with me. They've seen an episode here and an episode there, and they've got their own bit of input. Told me I've made loads of mistakes in the story, but, you know, like I say, that's just the way it goes. But I was speaking to Keith about the lady, and he sent me a picture. He said, "I hope I'm not too late. I've sent you this picture." And he'd got this amazing picture of the lady with a lady captor. And he told me the story, most of which I've forgotten. But it goes roughly along the lines of the fish was named the lady through a capture by a lady, by somebody or other. I know that's very vague, but hey ho, you know, regardless. That's how she got her name. And I'll ping that picture up now. And, you know, you can see there, it's a fantastic photo. I do the best I can with the software to clean it up a bit, because it's been emailed through to me. But yeah, just another little piece of the history that was being passed on, you know, from lake to lake to us, and to Sticky there on the bank that morning with the lady. And the other fish that you're going to see in the video is moonscale. Now, moonscale was one of the road lake fish, the other part of the Longfield complex. Now, the fish in the road lake, I don't know an awful lot about their history, but I'm assuming they were younger, because they grew. I mean, all the fish in Horton grew. It was a perfect environment for them. But moonscale was one of these road lake ones, and the road lake ones seemed to grow better, or, you know, faster, bigger than the original fish in that period, that first couple of years. I believe moonscale went into Horton as sort of a high double. I think it had one early capture, maybe low 20s, that's a guess. And then Sticky's got it in this brace shot at 29 pounds. And it wasn't to end there. This fish was really destined to just go straight up there. So there he is, anyway, on the bank with a brace of the lady and moonscale. So we'll take a quick look at that right now.
We're going down the bank for a nice level with the ground to photograph the fish on. As you can see, the camera crew are here already. Okay, time for the pics. Don't walk in front of me. Look at that head.
Good shadows.
Going there, Matt, right in the way.
Shadow.
Yes.
Camera in the way there.
At least look happy.
I'm trying. Oh. That's all I hold it for.
When you're in focus on it, look out of the way, right? Ready?
Two lovely mirrors.
Shadow.
Go on.
29.12.
29.12, 4 ounces short of a
The lady
30.
was
What a beautiful carp.
33.12.
Liar. Was it 33.12 or 33.4?
Your own shadow.
There's big scales on this thing.
So this was obviously the going swim at the time, the captors. Although, like I say, that the ski slope fished out to the same sort of area. The fish were blatantly just over the sort of south side of the lake in front of the captors. Now, I knew when Sticky was going, and I knew that I had 24 hours longer than him. So I'd staked my claim, and I was waiting to go in after him, and that's exactly what I did. You know, as soon as he'd pulled his sticks up and was half out of the swim, I was in like Flynn. I got in there, got my baits out, and I remember there was quite a few fish showing out there. I remember laying in bed in the morning, opening my eyes in the morning, and the first thing I saw as I looked out, it was a lovely flat calm morning, and the very first thing, as soon as my eyes focused, I was looking at a carp in the air right over my spot, and it just sort of hung there for a second, and then it slid back down, big old ripples coming out. I got up, you know, made a cup of tea and sat there, and I just watched fish after fish after fish showing out there right bang on top of me, and I weren't getting any bites. And I'm thinking, well, Sticky managed to get bites. What is going wrong? You know, are they both tangled? Is it? But you get all these doubts going through your head. Is it a bait thing? Is it this? Is it the other? I shouldn't have had any doubts. I was doing really well on there that year. And it was quite late morning. It was what I'd class as past bite time, and eventually it's torn off. One of the rods is torn off, and I've looked into it and I played this fish. Wasn't a major fight, you know, but a good account of itself, and it's ploughing up and down in the margins and that, and it's come up, as I said, it come up shallow, so it's come up on the shallower shelf. Head's still under, but then the tail came up, and the tail waved like that, and I could see a great big split down the tail. And I knew what fish it was straight away. There's a fish in there, again, one of the originals, the split tail common. Sort of mid-20 size, but a proper old character because of this tear in its tail, which is an ancient wound. You know, it's never getting better. And he came up and in the net, and there I am. I've got, you know, I've sort of finished off my session with another one of the originals. It's not what you call one of the A-team because size-wise and that, but it is like one of the proper character fish. And I was fortunate enough to get that as well on video. So we're going back to the 90s. So there he is, split tail common. He was about 25.5 pounds. That split in his tail is really quite horrendous, but it's not wasn't a new wound. He's always had it, just never ever healed up. But he was one of the proper sort of old characters of the lake. As you can see, I was well chuffed to have him, but the soundtrack that goes with this is awful. There's a jumbo jet going over the top of our heads the whole time. But you get the rough idea. Another one of my nice colourful stalking tops on there. So here we are, back in 2020 again, back in the lodge, attic, getting ideas above my station, back in the attic. Right, because we've got so much content still to go, which is great, because I'm enjoying doing them, and I know you're enjoying watching them, because I'm getting so much feedback, it's untrue, so thank you very, very much for that. You know, it's great seeing all the messages, and they're everywhere. You know, every time I look at something, you know, you've got YouTube messages, you've got Facebook messages and Messenger and texts and emails, and the other day I found a whole slab of messages on Instagram. I didn't even know you could get messages. One of the kids showed me, and there was a load of them, so I've tried my best to keep up with them all and answer everybody. But yeah, we've got a lot of content. You know, we've got the second and third year of Horton, which were rammed full of fish. And then if we're still locked down, obviously, well, even if we're not, I think I'm going to crack on and finish the book. You know, we have Raspberry, which is major stories. So I'm going to sort of wrap up the first year on Horton. I mean, there are a few more little bits I just want to touch on, you know. After that, in September, as I recall, the weather deteriorated quite quick. It became apparent that Horton wasn't a winter venue at all. It was deep. Deep lakes are rubbish in winter. I mean, let's face it. I've always done better in shallow lakes in winter. There's been the odd exception. Monks a few years ago, that was a deep lake. That was quite good in winter, but that's another story. I did have one winter fish out of Horton that year. I had one right at the beginning of December. I had a 21-pound common, which I'll ping a picture up of. But that was, as far as I know, that was it. I think that was the only winter fish. There was a couple out right scraper in, because it was, like I say, back then it was still close season. It used to end on March the 15th. I think there was a couple of fish out right at the very back end of the season. But most of the winter, nobody caught a thing. But we still fished on. There was less anglers, but the social scene in that first winter, I think that's what really cemented the friendships that have lasted till today, was the guys that spent the first winter on there, because we had the lodge now, and it was cold. I remember I've even seen it in my book. The coldest night I fished that winter was -10. Yeah, that's cold. but Horton never used to freeze. And it had become such a part of our life that we just fished on through the winter, regardless of not catching carp. And every evening we'd troop off up to the lodge en masse, and we'd take it in turn. Someone would go up there earlier. We used to cook, we got it fitted out by now. The kitchen was up and rocking. We had some better chairs and tables and stuff and some cooking equipment. And I'd taken an old electric sort of blast heater I'd got from somewhere to keep it warm. We had that running in there all the time, somebody else's electric, so happy days. And we'd sit up there and we'd swap stories and we'd drink beer and and it was something to look forward to. You're fishing in the day, it's freezing cold, but you knew come sort of 7 o'clock or in the winter, let's face it, it's dark at about 4:30, so it's probably about 5 o'clock. You'd start peeling off and going up the lodge, and it made it very bearable, very sociable, and like I say, a big bonding thing. It just became better and better, to be honest. Another good thing that came out that winter was Reg Bampton. Now, Reg Bampton, a lot of you will have heard of him, know him, seen him in the books, whatever. Reg had always been there, but Reg, he was actually Del Smith's mate, and he used to have a not very complimentary nickname, the Rent Boy or something back then, I can't remember. But he's actually called Richard Howell, and he wasn't really that known to us throughout that first summer. Didn't have that much interaction, but in the winter he just metamorphosized into Reg Bampton. He just came out of his shell. He just became Reg. It's quite a long story of how the Reg nickname came about, which I won't go into. But anyway, he just appeared to us that winter with his little yellow plastic carrier bag full of beer, and he was always there. Reg is hilarious. Okay, Reg is one of the funniest blokes you've met. It's just something about him. It's just his turn of phrase, everything. And he fitted straight into this nucleus of hardcore winter anglers that we thought we were, drinkers, smokers, whatever. So yeah, when we came out of the winter, Reg was very, very much a part of the firm. And we used to sit in the lodge and we'd have these great big dinners and what have you. As such, the swim nearest to the lodge became quite popular. Didn't do any fish, but it became popular because you could put your rods out and the amenities were right there, and you didn't have as far to stagger back at the end of the night. I remember one night CP liked it there because it was cosy, and like I've already told you, big tea drinker with the old pump up Coleman's cooker. Me and Keith was fishing opposite one night, and every time you put the kettle on, you'd see a big flare. If you've ever used a Coleman's cooker, you know what they're like. If you don't give them enough pressure, the flame starts off big yellow thing and then eventually drops down to the little blue burning flame. And it had flared up a few times, but lots of times throughout the evening in the dark. And then it flared up one time and it just went up in this great big fireball, and you could hear all this swearing and cursing over the other side of the lake, and then you heard a big clang as a foot hit a cooker, and you saw the fireball go up in the air. Like, it was pitch black, you couldn't see anything else. You saw the fireball go up in the air and there was a big splosh and it just disappeared in the lake. And what had happened, I don't think he'd done the cap up big, strong, tight enough. And he pumped it up and lit it, and the whole bloody lot had gone up in flames, and just booted it in the lake to save himself exploding. And the last thing about that winter, which will become quite apparent in the next winter, were the bivvies. Me and Keith had got these 2 bivvies from Aqua when they first started. They were Aqua domes, and they were like a thread-through pole. I can't remember. You threaded the poles through, and they all went in a little silver aluminium boss on the top. So it's like more like a dome tip than a put you up sort of brolly bivvy. But they had an inner skin, so like a cotton, like a fly sheet, but on the inside, which stopped you getting any condensation. And they were really quite tiny, these bivvies, but they were very, very comfortable because there was no condensation. So they were quite warm, and only me and Keith had them. And at first they were quite an oddity, nowadays you can buy any sort of bivvy you like, but back then they were quite an oddity, but they were very practical and they were brilliant for this really, really cold winter. I'm just going to finish with one particular story. We were round on the, I think we were in the ski slope, so we were on the potato field bank, and it was windy, proper windy, and it was freezing, and there was a few of us on, and I remember me and Keith had got into this. We've always been into cooking, but we were doing quite a few meals on the bank rather than in the lodge. And this particular night, we were inside this dome, and there must have been 5 of us in there, which in this little dome only just about housed your bed chair and your little bit of cooking stuff, and I could just about cram Fat Sam down the back. I can't remember if it was mine or Keith's, but it was one of our 2 domes. And this wind's coming across the lake, and it's proper strong. It's coming straight at us. So that would have been a big sort of southerly, I guess. And it's howling. And I say there's 5 of us in this dome, and we've got 2 cookers in there, and we've got 2 woks, and we've got a saucepan. There might have even been 3 cookers, because I know we were cooking rice as well. We've got 2 different curries on the go in these woks. I'm making one, Keith's making another one. The doors zip down tight. We're all in there, we're all drinking, smoking, it's just like a fog in there. And the front of the dome's bending in like that in the wind. It's absolutely thrashing in, the whole thing's shaking. They didn't have a built-in ground sheet, these tents, so that you relied on the pegs to hold it down. Like if you get a dome nowadays, the ground sheet's sewn into the sides, so it can't, it can't blow away. But these weren't like that. You had a ground sheet that you laid down and then you pegged the dome on top. So we were in there and the door's absolutely belting in, like proper tight, with the wind hitting it, big gusts. You can hear them coming across the lake, big whooshes. You think, oh, here comes another one, and you're all sort of cheering and hollering as it smashes into the tent. And we're cooking, it's all full of steam, and we're doing these curries. And it's got to a stage. The curries are done. And I remember we used to, our rice, we used to buy those boil in the bag, Uncle Ben's rices. So we'd have a load of them. There might be half a dozen of them in a big saucepan, depending on how many people there were. And they swell right up when they're ready, but you've still got lots of water in there. You have to drain them out. So I remember Keith saying, passing the rice across, I took the rice, passed it across to whoever was sat right closest to the zip, and said, tip that, tip the water, just unzip the door and tip the water out. The second the door has unzipped, before the pan can even be pushed outside to drain the water, no one was getting out, it was just going to hold it outside and drain it. The second zips come up on the side of the door, this massive gust has come in, it's like into the bivvy. It's come across the lake and it's gone bosh into the bivvy. The bivvy's gone whoosh, like a big balloon, and just gone. All the pegs have ripped out the ground at exactly the same second, and the bivvy's gone. Yeah. So 1 minute, where there's 5 of us all sat in this fairly comfortable environment, all warm, all jackets are off and everything. It's in fact more than warm. It's boiling in there, all full of steam and smoke and laughter and what have you. Next minute, with 5 blokes sat in a field with 2 woks of curry, a saucepan full of rice and no bivvy. It's literally just disappeared into the potato field. Just absolute disaster, mayhem. You can imagine everybody running around, people trying to save the bivvy, people trying to save the curry, especially from Fat Sam, who's probably thought, right, I'm getting straight into that. It was just all hands on deck, total disaster. Somehow we managed to save the day and get it all back together and eat the dinner. But oh God, it was just, and that's what it was like, most sessions down there, very, very sociable, usually a few disasters, lots of alcohol, and all in all, just a blinding winter, and nobody caught a thing. So it just goes to show sometimes it's not all about catching carp. It's just about carp fishing with a load of mates. So it was great. Yeah. So that was sort of, that brought us to the end of that first year on Horton. But we had so much more to come. And to be honest, I can't wait to tell the stories. But anyway, I've got to go and edit all of this lot first and fire it out there to you. So that's it from this today. Oh, one other thing. I employed little Georgia, our youngest, yesterday to save me keep holding the books up at the end of each thing. She's done me a little book ad, bless her. So I'm going to chuck that on now if you are interested in a book. And like I say, the postage seems to be working fairly well at the moment. So apart from that, until next time, ta-da for now.